so I'm starting off working on the pattern for the pouch. The left leg has a leather strap and a leather pouch. So I start off by tracing the pattern on 5mm and 2mm foam. Everything is labeled on the patterns. So now I just use contact cement to glue those together. I put contact cement on the front and back and on the side pieces. Put it on both sides and then stick it together. Now the strap goes on that circle lid first, and then on top of that goes the square edged lid. And I put that on top and I mark it with a pen so I know exactly where to put the glue. The reason you do this is because then when you glue it together it will show that strap through and give it more detail to make it look more like compressed leather. So now here I am putting the side pieces on the pouch. These are all labeled on the pattern. You might need to trim the bottom piece just a little bit to get it to fit. And I kind of curve it like that so that the side edges won't touch the glued part of the other side piece until I'm ready. And then you just put the back piece on like a sandwich. And then I use my rotary tool and I just sand everything down, make everything level. Make all three pieces level together, and I sand the corners so that they're not sharp square corners. I round them out a little bit just to make it look more like leather. And now I am marking where I want the lid to be. You want the lid to be kind of in the middle. You want that strap to be off the edge a little bit because it clips onto the bottom of the pouch. So now I'm gluing that in place. You can make it so that the pouch opens with an actual latch on the bottom if you want. I just didn't have anything to put in it, so I just figured I would make it just a solid piece. So now I'm using a tin foil technique to make a little bit of a leather pattern. This technique, you heat up the foam and then you can press the tin foil, crunched up tin foil, against it, and it'll leave a kind of a pattern. It looks pretty natural. The other way you can do this is by heating up the foil first and then just being careful that you don't burn your fingers off. Just press it against the foam. This is a lot easier if you do it before you glue the pouch together. Like this, I'll show you this way. This is my favorite way to do it. These are the straps for the pouch. They're just 2mm foam cut a little bit bigger than the pouch and the same size as the middle of the pouch. So you put your crinkled up tin foil on the foam and you just use an iron and you just go over it. You don't have to stay on it as long as I am, because it kind of warps, it kind of curves it a little bit, but you can just hold it flat. So you just do this over the whole thing, and you can see that texture that it gives you. It looks really good, as far as I think. And now I'm just gluing the pouch onto that strip. You can see where I marked it. So you can see that strip is like half of that pouch as far as width, and then the bottom of the pouch is lined up with the bottom of the bigger strip, and then I'm just gluing that in place. I leave that other piece a little long just because I will Velcro these around my leg eventually, but I don't know how thick they're going to have to be yet. It looks like there's a thicker piece of leather on the leg behind that, so I just to be safe, I left it a little long. Now here I'm cutting out the shin pattern. This is the piece that goes on his left shin. It's like that orangey leather. I'm pretty sure it's leather. I think it's just like metal plate with leather on it. I don't know exactly what it does, but it's the same process as the pouch. You just cut that piece out, and then you take a piece of 2mm. I used the same iron pattern on it, and so both of these have got 3 layers of Mod Podge to seal them, and now I'm going over it with some custom mixed paint. It's a little bit of brown, mostly orange, and after you weather this, it'll be a little bit darker. And now on the pouch, I'm going through with some dark brown. The leather on the back strap is dark brown, and the leather on the front strap and the pouch itself is a lighter brown. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just using a little bit of dark brown on the back, and because the foam is black, it takes a lot more coats than I would have liked to use. I think I end up using like 4. If you're gonna weather it, it doesn't necessarily have to be super saturated in paint, because the black background will actually help it like blend through a little more and look old. But this lighter brown did not cover very well, especially because I have 3 different colors of foam, so they all kind of cover differently. So I had to put a lot of coats on to get every piece to match the same shade. You can see how that first coat really doesn't do much, especially on the black. Now I'm using a little bit of white with that same orange color that I mixed up for the shin, and you just dry brushing to make it look cracked and old in the corners. If you look at pictures of leather, you can see that like the edges are frayed, and where the leather bends repeatedly and where it folds, it'll crack and it'll have lighter shades underneath. So that's kind of what I'm trying to emulate, just by hitting the edges and putting a little bit of chips and scratches and stuff on it. Using a little bit of dark brown here to just paint in this corner, just for some weathering. I go back over it with a little bit of darker brown and black watered down weathering later on. I'm doing the same thing with the pouch here. I'm just putting that same dark brown with a little bit of black, and I'm just trying to put it in all the recesses where all the dirt and grime would stick, and then just wiping it away. always like to do the dark wash first, and then I will go through after and do light, like the lighting chips that I was talking about before, after the wash. So I'm just weathering the leather, just using some brown and some black acrylic paint and just wiping it all on. I mix it up pretty wet, and then I just wipe it off, and that like fills in, especially if you do the pattern technique with the iron, it fills in all those little grooves. So I'm using that same wash, I'm just putting some splotches on here and there, just to emulate some mud or some spray or whatever. This is actually one of my wife's earrings that she doesn't use anymore. It's a little silver stem with a square, or not square, a circle tip, and I thought it looked pretty good, so that's what I'm using here as the latch. I'm just gluing it in place. So now moving on to the actual leg armor itself. These are the middle piece. This armor set is the same as the Shore Troopers from Rogue One, with a little bit of a difference. It's repurposed armor. Now these are marked on the template that the side pieces here get a like 60-degree cut. I cut mine out straight at first just to separate it from the foam, and then I go through later with my knife and try to put a 60-degree cut. I didn't do a super good job, so I end up going back through the Dremel just to really sand them smooth and put a better angle on it. This is the knee guard that goes on top of the armor. Just cutting this out straight. Now this is the top piece that goes on top of the knee armor. This is just a piece of 6mm foam. I cut it out straight, and the very edges of it are cut on a 45. You'll see that on the pattern, you'll see the line. So I marked the line on the foam, and now I'm doing the 45-degree cut. It's basically from that line straight to the corner of the bottom. I hit these with a rotary tool after just to sand them and smooth them out a little bit. It's pretty hard to get a perfect cut the first time, but if you have a rotary tool, you can just go through and just knock it down. So here I am grinding the 60 degrees on the back of those side pieces. I'm just sanding my cut line just to match, make it flush. And I start with the triangle pieces in the front. That rectangle piece there that I'm gluing it to has in the back, it's marked on the template. In the back, you just put like a V channel cut in so that it will fold. When you glue that triangle piece on the front, it'll fold it up. Can't really see it here on the video. You can kind of see it there on the bottom now, see how it peeks out. It is not just straight, it matches the same shape as those triangles on the side. So now the leg armor, I didn't build it on the video. It's pretty simple. It's just two pieces. When you tape them and glue them tape them together, it's just two pieces that get glued together. And this is the top detail, cut out of 2mm foam, glued in the middle first, and then I kind of pull it to match the corner pieces. I put this on first because that center armor piece goes on the top of that. I put bridges behind this piece to try to keep it square. It didn't work. I didn't think about the fact that they were straight, flat on the back, and the piece it was gluing to was round. But I was able to glue one side on first, and then I pulled them off the back, and then stuck the other side down. I marked where this goes with a pen first, just so I knew exactly where it had to go, so it wasn't crooked or bent in one specific way. It's easy to, especially with a hollow piece, it's easy to squish it and glue it crooked. So here's the top knee armor piece. Just gets glued on the top there. The back has this detail strip here that goes on here, and then there's a smaller strip that goes on top of that. This, on the real thing, this is the part where it latches together, so it can open like a clamshell and go around your leg. This one is designed where my leg fits through it, so I don't have to open and close it. So I cut these pieces long just so that I can cut them flush with the armor piece itself after. So now the leather strips that go around the armor piece is the same as what I did for the pouch in the Shin. It's a wider piece with a thinner piece on top, and I used the iron to do that, the heat technique that I showed you. And this top piece, this top armor strip gets glued around the whole armor piece, but the top is flush with the back of the leg. That's where I found works the best for my piece. Might be a little different on yours. You might have to lower it. Just look at reference images and just kind of decide where you want to put it. The bottom leather strip, I wish I moved down a little bit, but it doesn't look too bad. So now I just glue these on the back. I assume that they're supposed to be like velcroed down. I assume that the leather straps are like what he uses to hold it together on his leg. So now these are there's two triangle pieces that fit on the sides of that armor, and I just cut out squares, and I'm just marking where I want the angles to be. It's not really a diamond, it's more flat in the middle. So the top and bottom cuts are, I guess they would be more of an angle than the side pieces are. Just look at some reference images for those. It's more of a square, it's not really a peaked triangle. So I cut those out of some floor mat, 10mm floor mat foam, and then what I do is I glue, because the actual piece is square, and then the triangle piece is on top. So I cut the shape first, and then I glue it onto 5mm craft foam, and then when I cut this out, it's square. So the bottom is square, and then the top is peaked. That's probably the best way to emulate that kind of a shape. And then I just kind of sand the corners just to square them up with that bottom piece that I cut. just to make it look like one solid piece. So now here I am just using a little bit of super glue. And these go right above the strap on the side piece here. So now this is another custom paint mixture. This Shin piece is kind of annoying because it's brown. It's all brown, but they're all different shades of brown. So this is more, it's orange. It's more of an orange brown, but it's not as orange brown as that Shin piece that we painted earlier. This is more of a darker orange. So I paint a couple coats of this on this piece first. The entire leg armor and everything was sealed again with 3 layers of Mod Podge first. And now this is some of that dark brown that I was using on the leather straps before, but I mixed a little bit of a light tan color with it to make it a little bit lighter. And this color came out pretty close to the images that I was looking at. Actually, I was surprised at how close it was. And you just paint the entire leg piece with this. I paint the inside, a couple inches of the inside too, just so you don't see it. You probably won't see it, but just in case you do, around like your pants, this will make it so it's the same color. Now I use Mod Podge and acrylic paint on this armor piece because like I said, it's not going to be opening and closing. I'm going to be pushing my leg through it, and it fits well. It's just that it might flex a little bit, so that the acrylic and Mod Podge will make it so it won't crack if you flex it. Now this piece here is the leather strap that holds the rifle rounds on his leg armor. So this is just a thin piece of foam, 2mm foam cut into a strip. I'm using 1/2 inch PVC, which is the size of that I will use for the rounds when I make them. And I just glue up to it, put that in between, and then push it on there. And now, after it's all glued, I go back through and put the PVC through it, and I use a sharp square scissors just to push down to crease it and make it look a little bit more creased. That actually came out looking pretty good, I thought. So then in a future video I'll make those the rounds there for the rifle, and I'll be making them out of half inch PVC and painting them silver and everything, and then they'll just slip into those holsters. This is just some more of that same dark brown that I used on the other strap. This backing strap and the bottom strap are the same color, brown. So I painted the top, now I'm painting the bottom. And the strip of leather that holds the rifle rounds on it is a more orangey, actually it's red. I used red and brown to make that color, and now I'm going through a little bit of tan, light tan, and the same thing, I'm just brushing it on the edges of the leather where it would chip and fray. I like using a square brush for this because then I can right, so right there on the top of the peak is where it would fray, because it's always against like a sharp corner. So I kind of use my brush and just dab at that corner with a little bit of dry brush just to make it look like it's old leather. Now I use a really dark brown, mostly black with a little bit of brown, a lot of water, and I do a wash on the entire piece. Try to get on the inside of the knee guard too, where you can see down it, just to shove some dark paint in there so you won't see it. Now I'm taking a little bit of silver and I'm just doing the chips on that knee guard up there. You can see there's some chips. This is all supposed to be metal, so where there's scratches and marks and stuff, I go through and I just try to do the very edges of stuff. I don't want to overdo it. So now is the extremely tedious detail part that actually really made this piece come together for me. Just using some light tan, and I'm just going through the whole thing and putting stitches, just doing like hash lines, and just making it look like it has been actually stitched together. It just, in my opinion, it really makes the foam look like stitched leather. From a distance, you would just assume that it was like actual leather, and I feel like that's, if that's how it looks, that's kind of my job, is to make it look like you can't tell. But it took me a while to do this. I think I sped this up by 6%. So yeah, this took a while, but you can see at the end here that it really ties it all together. The bottom leather does not have any stitchings on it. It's mostly the pieces that have a strip on top and a strip on the back. They get stitched together. And I believe that is it for the leg armor. And, next week I will be doing the vibro knife that goes in the leg armor.